I'm not calling for their censorship, but isn't that double standard appalling? So we have this trans shooter goes in, shoots up a school. And one of the stories I saw, which I want to be clear, this isn't proof that the person I'm about to talk about here was viewed, but you sort of start to see some interesting things. So, around the last time that I would have been dealing with the aforementioned Vosh was probably around 3 years ago. And this is when Vosh's rhetoric about trans genocide was running amok. And so I thought it was interesting that this post came about. This is from the account Reddit Lies on X. It says 3 years ago, Redditors on Vosh's subreddit lost their minds over Matt Walsh quoting Males of Reddit screenshot of Jesse Boy 347. Jesse Boy 347 is the trans shooter that just shot up the school in Tumbler Ridge, Canada. Here's from Vosh's subreddit. It says, Matt Walsh quote tweets account that posted a person's adult content without permission is a form of targeted harassment. That account has over 50,000 followers, and many of them are underage. Matt Walsh just says, hate to say I told you so. And Males of Reddit says, never let your kids watch anime. Jesse Boy's comments, again, the murderer, the dude that just murdered people, says, I'm trans, male to female. I'm pre-HRT 15, and I've been viewing a lot of anime-related content recently. Was never into it before. The characters are always so cute. I don't want to be 20 or anything like the characters themselves, or 2D or anything like the characters themselves. But when it comes to their body shape and stuff, I often find myself comparing their semi-unrealistic, yet still physically possible shape. Specifically when it comes to height, BMI, and obviously their chesticles. I'm super skinny, so it sometimes makes me feel kind of good. But I'm pre-HRT, and my expectations are minimal for chest growth. And I'm 6 feet tall. Why can't I be a petite? Side note, if I know you anywhere, I should go get into watching anime. That'd be nice. Never watched it before. I'm not going to post the tweet I'm referring to for obvious reasons, but it was recent. Every sort of accusation is a confession, says the Vosh people. Also, Charlie Kirk posted a video of a murder a week or so ago. What the fuck is wrong with Republicans? Well, Charlie Kirk has been assassinated, and now the innocent victim that Matt Walsh was pointing out as went on to murder people. You're banned and trans now. Enjoy yourself for your spam. Matt Walsh then posted again today, goes, I once again hate to say I told you so. Some more posts about this murderer. Reddit lies. Rough time of the Reddit account of the Canadian school shooter. Reddit lies says, found Reddit at 10 years old for a Roblox subreddit. At 13 was interested in boy stuff, guns and military. At 15, started his transition. So I'll show you some of the proof here. Here he is, fucking 10 years old. Talking about guns and silver lions and Then at 15, starting male to female transition soon. Which sort of things will I be taking? Pills, needles. Hello, I'm 15 years old and have an extreme phobia of needles. Blood work's dreadful. I was wondering, what kind of stuff can I expect? I've seen big, scary progesterone needles and also pills and the same stuff. Are pills effective? Like, my main concern is just avoiding as many needles as possible. What's I go through exposure therapy for it? What will I need to get jabbed that is unavoidable other than blood work and potentially IVs? This is my first post here. I'm really in the dark on a ton of stuff. Going to a specialist here in Canada soon, but I decided I may as well ask some stuff here in the meantime. Then started experimenting with drugs while on SSRIs. I went crazy and burnt my house down my second time trying shrooms, but still have a desire to try alternatives. I'll keep this brief. It's 4 a.m. I got out of the psych ward a month ago, and now I'm here. I'm not schizophrenic. I'm likely to be bipolar, diagnosed with ADHD, MDD, ASD, and OCD. Tried shrooms once, a small and measured dose, and I was chill. Second time I tried 3 grams of blue meanie ground up in some peanut butter. Had a break and did irrational things, felt like I was dreaming. Now thinking about extreme harm reduction measures, considering restraint and low doses of DMT to test the waters, whether I remain safe or not. It's a perfect choice, it doesn't last long. I'm kind of high right now, and I'm just typing out stuff. Please give input. He's talking about doing DMT alone. Had a complete mental breakdown on 3G of Panacillus, Cytosine shroomies. How many kids has this happened to? I'm an old man now. I'm 41, but I vaguely remember being a teenager. Some of it sucks, man. I was fat too. I was popular. I was funny, but I was fat. I wasn't a big hit with the fucking ladies or anything. But I was someone who, you know, had anxiety as a teenager and didn't know where I fit in the world necessarily. Now imagine that so much of your culture is telling you, particularly if you're a white boy, being white's terrible. Being male's terrible. But you know what you can do to not be ashamed of yourself? You know what you can do? You become trans. And all we hear over and over is, oh, it's perfectly safe. These hormone blockers, they're great, they're awesome, they're amazing. The doctors are very good. They're very good at narrowing down exactly who needs these drugs. They don't just give them willy-nilly. I have a sister that's 20 years younger than me. She went to the exact same school I did. 20 years later. And when I graduated high school in 2002, there maybe was one gay kid in class who actually was my friend. Maybe two. But there was some amount of bullying, I'm not going to lie, but it wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't like people getting beat up and shit, but I mean, everybody got bullied for something. I got bullied for being fat, you know? Whatever. There's no trans people. I think I graduated with 92? Could be wrong. My sister, 20 years later, said that half of her graduating class was LGBT. Half identified. Same school, same location. Demographics were just about the same. Wasn't like the town went through a big change. If anything, the town's dying. Her class was smaller than mine. It's a fucking joke. What happened? And what they'll have you believe is, oh, it's not a social contagion. It's not that society has pushed this, that the internet's pushed it, that Reddit, that entertainment industry. No, 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 no. It's that these people always existed, but they were ashamed. And now they could be out in the open. It's bullshit. They break down kids based on their identity. You're white, you're an oppressor. You're a boy, you're an oppressor. But here's the good news. You don't have to be a boy. I can imagine. I have to be careful because I don't want to out anyone's personal info. But in the debate scene in college, super left wing, left of the left. Like, I was debating from like the years of 2023, basically 2020. Yeah, 2023 till 2027. And then I judged and coached debate for years afterwards. I'm 41. So there were very few of us right wingers. I was sort of like a libertarian-esque right winger. I was a Ron Paul guy. There are very few of us. In fact, I remember circa 2016, I was still involved in debate to some point, and I was like, you could count in the prominent debate scene on one hand the amount of people that voted for Donald Trump out of hundreds, if not thousands of people, which I was one of them. Yeah, 2003 to 2007, whatever I said. So a lot of these squads would have identities. Like, for example, Towson University was like sort of radical black activism. Same with Louisville. And Kansas State, if I got it right, was like super feminist. Binghamton was super vegan. They were super like advocating. Right? And so most of the squads ranged from just sort of not really an identity that much to insane radical left, somewhere in between theirs. Oh, no thanks, Dr. D. I'm not obsessed with the orange man and his genitals like you lefties. But thanks so much. So, you probably met the Binghamton vegans. Anyways, once I started judging, there was a particular, I'll be cool on the school. I won't name the school, but just to give you an idea of that's sort of the backdrop of this. I started judging debates, and there was, here on the East Coast, I was in District 7. So you debated a lot of schools, the same schools over and over again that are like sort of in your geographical area. You end up going to similar tournaments. Unless you're like a national caliber team, you're not flying every week. You sort of stay in your geographical area. So we debated a lot on the East Coast. So Pennsylvania, New York, we'd go down to the DC region. Sometimes we'd find our way to like Georgia. But that was about it. And then there were big national tournaments. So like Wake Forest was a national tournament, Kentucky was a national tournament, etc. But basically you stay in the same region. So when I started judging, when you're judging a debate, sometimes after the debate, you give your decision, and then most of the time, a decent judge will be willing to give feedback. Almost everyone gives a small amount of feedback. But I would really try to help if someone asks, like, what can I do to get better? So there's this one guy. He was not good. He was not a good debater. And I saw him all the time. I judged him probably every other tournament we were at. He would be there. I would judge him. He was bad. He was not a good debater. And he was on a team that was very much dominated by bigger voices and a lot of women, minorities, etc. And you could tell he didn't fit in. And he would always be out. Like when you'd see people like in the, like, because most of the tournaments are at a university, you would see him out in like the park benches. He always had a football. And he'd like be tossing it to himself. And I kind of felt bad for the guy because I know if you're not a fucking crazy radical lefty, it could be a very lonely place. And he wasn't that good. You know, I had the advantage. I had two advantages over him. I was funny, so the lefties liked me. I was like likable. And I was good. So that helped. I was seen as like an anomaly. Plus, they liked me because I hated George W. Bush. So it was like, it's okay. Back then, that's all that mattered. This is before the days of Trump. So I was against the Iraq War. So I was okay to the lefties. So here's this guy, and he just stagnated. He wasn't very good. People that joined after him were surpassing him, and whatever. But he'd always ask, and I'd spend a lot of time trying to help him. You end up following people on Facebook through debate. Back then, that's one of the ways you'd exchange evidence. Hey, just send me that link on my Facebook. So you'd send someone. So I haven't used Facebook for years, but I still have a ton of Facebook friends that are just random people I debated or I judged because people would send you evidence there. So I was friends with this person on Facebook. Now they ended up going back to the school that they were an undergraduate for their graduate degree. I had a friend from my school that also went into that graduate program. And so he sort of gave me some of the details of what's going on behind the scenes. And this football throwing gentleman that wasn't very good was having a tough time. And at this point, the university he was at, it had changed directors for their debate team, and it became a super radical black activist team. So the white guy, he ain't fitting in very good. And then all of a sudden, he became trans. And he went from the most unpopular person there, no one wanted to talk to, untalented, to the most special, doted after person on the squad. I'd see it on Facebook. They'd post something just fucking like benign, like, so tired of the snow, can't wait for it to be over. This person that had no engagement previously, now they're trans. They'd have 40 likes from people in the debate community. Oh, it's so special. Yay, you're great. Oh my goodness, you're so brave. Talking about the weather as a trans woman? Oh my goodness. That's so brave. It's amazing. Then I would see, they'd put shit on there like, in my graduate class today, because they were like a TA or whatever, so they'd teach classes. In my class today, we were talking about potential debate topics for the finals. And someone said trans in sports, and another student stood up and said, what's their debate? Trans people are women. I gave them an A for the entire semester. It's like, yeah, fuck you. You're a bad professor too. How about that? Now this person, and then my friend that went there was like, this person instantly became the biggest fucking asshole in the world. Intoxicated with power. You see, on the left oppression Olympic scale, when oppression is the most valuable currency, and you're a white male, sorry, dude, you're privileged. You're bottom of the fucking barrel. But you know how you can shoot right to the top of the list to the most valuable currency? You're trans. Now you're the most popular person. Everybody hanging on your every word. Oh, you're so great. You're amazing. Now imagine that occurring at a mass level. And imagine it's not just in college, which, hey, you should be old enough to know better. But it's occurring in elementary schools. That's what we're dealing with. This trans shooter started off on Reddit on Roblox. Now, I don't know much about Roblox. It's sort of like Minecraft, except you can make your own games and shit. I'll show you a clip here. I'll be very careful with this. Here is a clip from a Roblox game. Now, there you see. That was created by this trans shooter. In the game, you receive firearms and you use them in crowds of people in a mall that was modeled after the mall that the trans shooter knew. Roblox sounds like the biggest fucking cesspool in the world. If you have kids, do not leave them on Roblox unmoderated. Matt Walsh puts out, trans people are the most dangerous and unstable group in existence, and it's not close. The entire gender transition industry must be forcibly shut down immediately, not just for the sake of the gender confused people it preys upon, but for the safety of the public in general. Couldn't agree more. And then, this is the post that I really wanted to happen. Matt Walsh says, I've been saying that trans ideology is basically defeated at a cultural and political level. I sort of disagree with that, but fair enough. And I still think that's true. But that will only make its adherents even more dangerous as they face the humiliation of having devoted their lives to a lie that everyone has now moved on from. Many of them will decide they can't live with the horror, and they'll want to take out as many people as they can on their way out. And that is true. We talked about this a little last week, but now you're starting to see, we saw the high watermark, I think, culture. I think there's still a lot of fighting that needs to take place. But the high watermark of trans ideology, it crested in the 2024 election. Even the Democrats knew at this point it was too much. They went too far. Even the normies, they could buy all the gay stuff. They could buy the gay parades, but the trans shit was becoming too much. It was just too absurd. So they started to backtrack from it. You could see it. Even some people like Cenk Uygur like, well, maybe we should. You could see that was the cresting moment. For now, it could always come back up. But and then now what you've seen is the American Plastic Surgery Association and the American Medical Association have both came out against surgeries for minors. And all it took was one lawsuit in a Democrat state for millions of dollars. I was reading 12 such lawsuits have been filed since that lawsuit got a victory. There will be doctors bankrupted. They knew that it was disgusting. They knew that it wasn't medically sound, and they did it anyways for big piles of money. And now, people who were sold this bill of goods and went through the hormone blockers, the surgeries, that realized that they've butchered themselves and fucked their lives up irreparably, they're going to be mighty pissed. Some of them are going to take it out on innocent people. Others are going to try their best to get their life back on track, and they're going to file lawsuits. Maybe others still will be cynical and file the lawsuit just for the fuck of it. But either way, yeah, why would doctors back off if it's medically sound? You say, so what? It's not about the money for me. It's about providing the best care for people, right? Really? But here's the problem. The people that bought into trans ideology, 90% of them could never let it go. They can't. If you're a parent and you got your kid hormone blockers, or God forbid surgery, you will have cognitive dissonance that will never allow you to believe that that was wrong. Ever. How could you live with yourself if you butchered your child? And many of the people that transition, how could you look at yourself and say, oh my goodness, I made a huge mistake? In for a penny, in for a pound. These parents, and by the way, unfortunately, I'm not even going to sow the post, but this trans shooter in Canada's mom was conservative but pro-trans and was so proud. Imagine that. Having your life ended at the hands of your own child that's been butchered and fucked up this way. What a horrific way to go. Unbelievable. So now, you're going to have these situations where these people are going to be afraid to sort of say what the truth is. It's not just the trans issue, but this will be the pinnacle. Because the implications of such is you tortured your child. That's what you did. And they won't be able to say, yep, you're right. So they'll fight tooth and nail. They'll never give it up. It's the greatest example of it. But so many of these causes on the left are the same way. I've said for years on this channel, as the left loses cultural and institutional power, they will become more desperate and they will get more violent. And that is true of the trans community as well. And so, unfortunately, you're going to see a lot more of these. Because now it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. As the detransitioners win lawsuits and as more violence occurs, there'll be more of a movement to have more institutions say, okay, we're backing away from gender affirmative care, which will then cause the people in the trans community to say, it's a genocide. Now we have to fight back. We're the victims. That's why I showed you that post of Tiffany Starr. Trans Nashville shooter. By the way, remember they hid that manifesto from us, and then like a year and a half, 2 years later, they released it, and it was like, it specifically targeted white people and Christians. Ha ha! Oh well. Didn't make a big deal out of that, did they? So what you're going to see is they're going to become more and more desperate. Then what you'll see is, well, that's going to lead to a crackdown on places like social media. People are going to say, you know what? We're not going to allow places like Reddit to have all these conversations about trans people and violence. Nope. And that's going to cause the trans community to get more angry. That's the cycle we're going to be in now. Tiffany Starr said after the Nashville shooting, great, good. That's just trans women defending their right to exist. Mm-hmm. Against children. Children. And it was celebrated. Remember when the people broke in to the Tennessee seat of government or whatever? They held up the fingers for the victims. 6 victims or 7. They included the shooter as one of the victims. Like this.
As a person who went to school, had hateful comments directed my way, the first victim of this tragedy was the shooter. And you can disagree all you want. But that person did not just decide one day that it was the day. It was the day that they could not take it any longer. I know it's a small community, but you know what also comes with a small community? A small mindset. An uneducation to understand that maybe difference is okay. The first victim to this tragedy was the shooter. Verbal abuse is what pushes people to a point where they don't feel worthy to be here any longer. And I only know this because I am a victim of this.
Of course!
To this day.
Victimhood! That's the currency!
There's only so much a person can handle. And I believe that in a small community, the hate and the transphobia in this country is the reason why tragedies happen.
Every time there's a trans shooter, it's the trans community that's the victim. Not the like fucking schools or churches they shoot up. But isn't it interesting how the trans community and these people, they see how they believe it's being called names. Of course it leads predictably to violence. Let's hear from our good friend John Fetterman again.
You said, quote, I've drunk deeply of the venom of both the left and the right. As a connoisseur, I can confirm that the most poisonous, the bitterest, is from the far left. That is pretty remarkable to hear you say that as an elected Democrat. Why?
No. It's just been my personal experience on this thing. And when I asked my digital team, I said, we're on all the platforms. Really, what's kind of the harshest? What's kind of the most personal? And the answer was immediate. They said, "Oh, blue sky. It's blue sky." And the difference is, the right would say really rough things and names. Some names I won't repeat on TV, but the on the left, it was like they want me to die, or that we're cheering for your next stroke, or that's terrible that depression won. Why couldn't it depression won? And I hope your kids find you. They even have like the graphic, a GIF where they have like a stroke, in your head, cheering at that. Yeah, and they said that. I remember one. They claimed, "Oh, the doctor let us down," and why did they have to save his life? Just really, like, I just can't imagine. People are wishing, I wish he dies, or I want him to die. literally cheering for a stroke. And I don't know what the kind of a place where that comes from. I mean, that's much different than just calling me a name. That's really been consistent, in that community online.
Now, we just heard from the trans individual before this. Oh, the bullying, the name calling. That's the predictable results. How about all the anti-white rhetoric? How about all the fucking vitriol for being a Trump supporter or a conservative or a Christian? If there's a mass shooter that shoots up some left-wing organization, are the left going to speak up and say, well, they're the first victim because of our language? They celebrated in mass at the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Take someone like Destiny. This guy says the most inflammatory shit. He said that all Republicans should fear for their lives to be in public. And yet the guy clutches his pearls. Trump, he doesn't condemn violence enough for me, so now we're justified. If you go to a Trump rally, fuck around and find out if you get shot. And we're just supposed to accept it. Oh, hell yes. The perpetual victim class. They're allowed to wish death upon you. In a sense, yes. This trans shooter was a victim of this left-wing fucking insane ideology that people like this asshole trans speaker are perpetuating. Then they have the nerve, well, the bullying was too much. The bullying. Go fuck yourself. The bullying's less of a problem than the fucking affirmation. Now, I'm not saying if someone's trans that they should be beat up or any shit like that. But the fact that now it's something to be celebrated, that's far more damaging. Remember when Jordan Peterson was fighting back against Bill's, what was it, C-16? Compelled speech? You have to use the pronouns? That's how Jordan Peterson got his start? And now we have an entire generation of fucked up kids. At this point, what was the real bullying? That you went on online spaces where people said shit to you? I bet there wasn't a lot of bullying at your fucking Canadian school, because if there was, the teachers would have fucking expelled the people that made fun of you for being trans. COVID? How about climate change? For years, kids had anxiety because they were told the world was going to end in 20 years. That was all bullshit. Yes, bullying does still happen when there are woke teachers, in large part by the woke teachers and by the left. Nah, I didn't see the protesters get arrested. This indoctrination of children is fucking unbelievable. Remember when I debated Jangles 3 years ago or so? We were talking about critical race theory being taught in schools? Nah, it's all bullshit, he said. So then we went to the original authors of critical race theory. One of the things it said was they wanted to create activists as young as kindergartners Jangle said, yes, why not? We want to create activists, but only for good causes, like pro-LGBT causes. Meanwhile, less and less children are proficient in math and reading. But hey, at least we're creating activists for the LGBT. Of course, then I asked him, I said, anti-racism? Yep. Is MAGA racist? Yep. So our tax dollars should be going to teach kids to hate MAGA in school? Yep. That's people running shit. We showed these footage the other day. Preschools, kindergartens, elementary schools. Training the students to hate ICE. Some of them allowing the kids to go protest on the street. That's where our schools are at. I used to talk to this guy. I had this debate with him. I was like, I don't want our schools indoctrinating children. I want our schools teaching kids civics, reading, writing, history, math, science, some physical education. Be nice, you know? Sure. And his argument to me was, why? That's a loss. Because if we do that, and then the other side says, nah, we're going to push our agenda. We're going to indoctrinate kids to our side. Who do you think wins? And he's right. He's absolutely right. We spent years trying to win elections, trying to win arguments. The radical left was like, fuck that, we'll take over education. Yuri Brezhnev said it. Within 2 generations of teaching children and indoctrinating them, you're able to take over a country. See if I can find the quote. It's a good one. Maybe he said 3 generations. He's a Soviet defector, ex-KGB.
To change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation.
Have we done that? 1690 Project. America's racist. White people are evil. All European countries are evil. They're terrible. Christians are bad. White people are bad. Okay, we're there.
Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate 1 generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The result you can see. Most of the people who graduated in the 60s, dropouts or half-baked intellectuals, are now occupying the positions of power in the government, civil service, business, mass media, educational system. You are stuck with them. You cannot get rid of them. They are contaminated. They are programmed to think and react to certain stimuli in a certain pattern. You cannot change their mind, even if you expose them to authentic information, even if you prove that white is white and black is black. You still cannot change the basic perception and the logic of behavior. In other words, these people, the process of demoralization is complete and irreversible. To get rid society of these people, you need another 20 or 15 years to educate a new generation of patriotically minded and common sense people who would be acting in favor and in the interests of the United States society.
Sound familiar? Now that clip's, I think, in the 80s. I want to see if there's more clips to it, but that's the only one I could find for now. One second. I'm seeing if I can find the clip here. Maybe we'll go through this whole video someday. I found the video. It's an hour and 20 minutes. Nonetheless, just on the demoralization part, right? Yeah, the Paul Harvey speech is great too, the right opinions. It's exactly what we see. People ask me all the time, well, how do we fix it? It's going to take generations. Generations. Now, notice how he said, it won't matter. You can't go to these people with the truth. You can't be like, well, black is black and white is white. They're objective truths. No. What more evidence do you need to see of that than men or women?
I bet those glasses make you see better.